Hi, 13th of April 2023, propane gas fuel. This is a special subject. If you're not interested, please don't waste your time, just skip it. I have my thing up here, vintage workshop heating gas. Now, if you're doing repairs of tractors and machinery and various other things, you'll always come across the problem of the nut that's seized or stuck and rusted onto a bolt. And people make little of getting it off, but the fact of the matter is, if the bond with the bolt is so tight that it's tighter than the socket or the wrench on the hexagon outside of the bolt, it'll wring the hexagon off and you can't get it off. I have made it a point in my lifetime of watching people who say never, no nut or bolt ever beats them or her, and then I bring them some awkward one and they give up. They'll give up, and there's times you can't use heat, and that's another big problem. So there could be times too when it's a stud and you can't take it off with the angle grinder. But there's also many other reasons. If you're doing any brazing, you need torches. Now you can get the bullfinch torch, and there's another one from England, a silver vert or something anyway, but there's a bullfinch torch, and you need a special regulator to allow the gas to come out very fast. Now remember, the air around you is only 1/5 oxygen, and you get a certain amount of heat, but you do not get all the heat you get from oxygen. Oxygen raises the temperature very, very high. So I've looked at and mentioned about acetylene, and I've come to the conclusion that acetylene is getting very hard to get because of the situation in Germany with energy and all that. And there's the hobby weld option for acetylene, but they're small cylinders. You really don't need a big cylinder. They're hard to move. But if you withdraw more than 1/7 of its capacity in an hour, you have to stop. You just cannot keep using a little cylinder till it's all gone. You'll pull the acetone out. You cannot do that, and that's a big limitation. The other thing is that the propane's not as hot up close to the tip as acetylene, but out a bit, it's not too bad. I find it very good, and I've been trying it now, and it has really worked really well for me. So the option I'm in favour of now is propane. Now there's also polylene, there's polypropylene, there's MAPS gas, there's various other ones. But I'm now here talking about where the farmer or the engineer or whatever wants to, or the vintage man wants to have a set of gas bottles. What is the best option? What's the cheapest option? And which one do I recommend? And now I'm in a position now to say. Now this is the little cylinder of propane, and you can get one roughly twice that size. That's the domestic cylinder. It's burnt all over the place, so you get it at any filling station. Okay. Now, it has a screw valve here, and still a little bit in that, you get the smell. It has a valve here, so that's why it differs from the color gas yellow cylinder. You can't use them at all. They're butane mainly, and they don't freeze. This will freeze quicker than butane, but this is what is the one you want. Now, I think this little cylinder can't be got anymore, or maybe it can be got in certain places you can acquire in Dublin. But the bigger cylinder does the job, and it has all this protection here on it. Now, here's a very important point. The Northern Ireland propane red cylinder has a female attachment. See? I'm going to put my finger into it, watch. See? And the Southern Irish, the Republic, has a male. It screws up on it. Do you understand? Now, this is one type of regulator they use, and that'll fit in. I'm just working on that at the minute. They do use these because you can open this as much as you like, but it's not the best option. For a little extra, if you could afford it, you're better get the proper gauges. Now, here is a proper oxygen gauge, right? This is a proper oxygen gauge. This is not an acetylene gauge, and it's not a propane gauge. The gas gauge has a left-hand thread and nicks on around here. But it's the same idea. You can't screw this in here because it's a different thread. But just be aware that if you can get cylinders of a particular fitting, you need to get your gauges the same. Otherwise, you'll have to use an adapter, and that's 2 more joints to leak. So I would advise anyone, before they do anything, is check the cylinders that's available to you. If you're down in Limerick or Cork or Wexford, you probably won't get this type of cylinder. If you're up in the northern part of the country, you will get them in Northern Ireland and many of the outlets there, filling stations. And that's the simplest way to have a replica for acetylene. Now, the acetylene gauges will fit in here. They're the very same fitting. Don't let people tell you they're not. The British standard pipe fits the female one of these. That's the one that this goes into. You see? That's it. It fits. Now, this is oxygen. I'm just talking if this was acetylene. It fits. Moreover, you can use the acetylene gauges on the propane. But you can't use the other way around because there's a danger limit for acetylene at 15 pounds per square inch. Now, I would suggest I wouldn't use acetylene gauges at all because there is a difference in them in that acetylene attacks copper and propane doesn't. So the way I'd go about it, if you have the acetylene gauges, well, maybe that's all right, but if the way I'd go about it is I'd buy a proper propane gauge and valve, and that contains the fitting, it contains the pressure adjustment here, and it contains your two gauges, one showing the level of fuel left and the other one showing the pressure that you set it for by twisting this valve. And then you get it for the recommended one for the various nozzles, and you can see how much gas is left and all. Really, this is very cheap. In today's terms for workshop work, it's not dear at all, and this is a very handy option for all the reasons I've said, and you can get it locally. So if you're wherever you are in the country, check what cylinders you'll be most able to get on a Saturday evening when you're doing something or whatever, or a Monday evening or Monday morning. And there's a big high propane cylinder. I wouldn't go that. I'd go the one double this size, the one you put in a barbecue stove or a gas stove or a gas cooker, the ordinary cylinder of gas. Now, when you're buying your fitting, you're better buying your regulator first. And again, there's this point that if you have to travel all the way to Northern Ireland to get your cylinder, you're nearly better using an adapter. But I'd check the cylinder and then get the gauges. Now, when you go in, be aware of this in Ireland, any part of Ireland, but particularly the south, they will sell you whatever they have on the shelf and you don't accept it. Several times they try to sell me the wrong ones, and if you buy online, they'll give you the wrong one. Every time they'll throw you anything, and they get all confused between argon and acetylene and propane, and most of them having a monkey's notion what they're talking about. So you need to check what if it's a male one here, you need to get one with the female on the end here, and they are available. You can get them available. Otherwise, you need a joiner. That's a bit of a nuisance. So why not get the correct one of propane, and then it'll be marked propane round here, and you'll see the gauges on it, and then you have the proper setup. If you mind it, it'll do you a long time. So that will go in there like that. And if you can get one with that has a side entry like this here, that goes in the side, then that's the way you get it. And they'll try to sell you one that'll have them upside down and everything. Try and get the right one. If you can't get it in Ireland, you might get it online. You get them, Sealy's do them, and all of that. So that's the point. Now I'm going to go on to the torch and that in another video. Now when you have your propane, remember you will need 3 times to 3.5 times the amount of oxygen to service your propane cylinder. So therefore oxygen is going to be the cost effective. But for loosening bolts, the little Hobbywell cylinder of oxygen, the original cylinder, will do. Even you have to change it. It's €42 to change it. But it'd still do a long time if you're not doing much work. You're stuck there with a bolt, or you're stuck there with some part and you want to heat it, and this will do. You could also use a MAPS blow lamp, which is very expensive. It's £20 a whack. I mean, you'd have the ordinary domestic one of these for about €28. So a MAPS gas cylinder could be 22, and it doesn't have the oxygen with it. So this, with the bit of oxygen, even at 40, would still get you a lot of use if you use it right for heating and all of those things, soldering and doing all that. It will not do welding. You cannot weld 2 pieces of steel with an iron welding rod or a steel welding rod filler. You can't do that because this flame is oxidizing. You cannot get it down enough to a carburizing sooty flame. The acetylene is the only one will do that. But apart from that, it's nearly nothing. You're not going to be doing that type of welding. You can do your brazing, you can do your heating, you can cut off stuff. It'll cut a girder straight across. This cylinder here will cut a piece of steel a ½ inch thick straight across for 2 foot with the proper torch. But it'll use a good deal of oxygen and you get what you pay for. All told, however, there's very little problems. You could be stuck inside a brake drum and you just can't get this to come off, and you just need to get a bit of heat to it, even only a bit. And remember, only heat enough to get the job done. Keep trying it. So no need to get it yellow hot, because you're then damaging the surrounds. Just go enough till you get it to move, and put a wee bit of easing oil on it. Now I hope I've explained that. There's 2 types of fitting for the propane cylinder. There's the Northern Irish and the Republic of Ireland. The Northern is a female. The part goes into it. The regular goes into it. The South is a male, and it goes over it. Both are grand. I prefer the Northern one, but both are grand. But make sure the regulator fits that, and get it to suit. Get a side entry regulator too, because the old BOC gases and the air gas, they were top entry. But with this now, your side entry, with all Hobbywell, your side entry, and a lot of cylinders are now becoming side entry, because the day of getting a spanner to open your cylinder, that's gone. You just use this here. Very, very handy. I think that's all, folks. You have to exercise due care and attention, and watch out for leaks and all that. But and all that. But I might come back now and do the hoses and all that, the torches, and the brazing torches and the cutting torches. I might do that in another video, but I think that's near enough. The point I'm making is, get this bit right here. Check it when you're down in the shop today. Just check, look at them, and see what's likely you're going to have. And then you go and you buy your gauge, and you buy the correct gauge with propane written across here. And that's half the battle. Then you have to go on and get your torches and your hoses. And of course, a flashback arrestor, a flashback arrestor on both of these to prevent the flame from going back into the cylinder. And then you have a problem. You have to have a flashback arrestor. A wee bit of expense, but sure, if you left it in a dry place and take care of it, it'd do you forever. And you can screw off this and buy your kettle with it too. So that'll do. I think I have done enough on that for vintage thing. I think the thing I learned is this. I think that you can be in a big problem when you go to the shop and you buy one of these. Oh, it won't fit. There's nothing as sick as that, and that's the fact of the matter. Get that right. If you're really stuck, you can get an adapter. In some of the welding shops will sell you an adapter. It's up to you if you want to go that far, but then you have another joint, and you're supposed to check your joints with soapy water to make sure there's no leakage. That's it. I've cut steel with propane, and it works well. You can use the acetylene regulator on this as well if you really had one, but you might as well get off to a good start and get the right stuff from the beginning. That's it, folks. Give me a thumbs up or a thumbs down, and we'll see you back for something else soon.